India is one of the youngest nations in the world, with almost 65% of its population being under the age of 35. But as we celebrate this exuberance of youth, are we somewhere forgetting one of the biggest assets that our culture has? That is its wisdom. We will be talking about the wise in India, the elder in India, the elderly in India, and to do so we have on our program today the CEO of HelpAge India, Mr. Mathew Cherian. Mathew, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You know, we come from a culture where the elders are respected, they are treated next to gods, but is that the truth in our country today?
We have a tradition and a culture which is says Matru Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava, Atiti Deva Bhava. And what has happened is, in the older times, we used to look at them as God, and this was culturally so for many years.
Right.
But today what is happening is, with increasing pressures of economic independence and also migration of younger children to various parts of the country and various parts of the world, elders are being left alone and allowed to fend for themselves. Along with this, the joint family system is also collapsed, and there is very little care available as you grow old.
Right.
I agree that India is a young country, but elderly are about 100 million strong already, and by 2050 we will no longer be a young nation. We will be an old nation, because 20% of our elderly will be there in the population, and 1 in 5 people will be old. So we will no longer be the young nation that we are. Having said so, there is a lot of issues which is needed, and loneliness of older people has become a big problem.
हेलो पिंकी, बेटा कैसी हो? ठीक हूँ. हाँ, दिवाली की मिठाई मेरे लिए किधर है? हाँ, क्या अगले साल लाओगी? हाँ, अच्छा, मम्मी को सताना नहीं. हाँ, अच्छा रखूं? ओके.
Is there some sort of a way where the elderly or the older can look after themselves?
See, we stay in a very connected world. Today we have internet, we have mobile phones. Every part of this country, people have mobile phones. But in such a connected world also, we have very, very lonely people, especially the elderly who are staying lonely. There are ways to connect over the internet. There can ways to connect through SMS and various kinds of things. But what has happened is, there's very little of that put for older people. Most of the mobile companies only target the young population.
Right.
They do not target the older population. And as a result of it, you find less of older people on Facebook, less of people on social media, on various connected. But children, at the same time, we as HelpAge keep encouraging children to go and meet their older parents, because every grandparent loves to see grandchildren.
That is true.
And the moment they see young people, their lives are filled with joy. So can we get some amount of joy? So we ask children to go and meet, as far as possible, their grandparents. If they can't meet their own grandparent, go and meet other grandparents in their own street or in their own colony. You can meet other people. So this will bring some amount of joy and will kill the loneliness which is there in their lives.
You know, one of the big questions is what age is described as elderly? Because with the increase in life expectancy, 60, 65, 70 साल के लोग भी young लगते हैं. So who do you consider elderly?
Actually, the word elderly has a mixed definition. The age of retirement in India is 60 years, and the United Nations also recognizes 60 as the age at which people become elderly as senior citizens. But there is also a definition of young old and old old.
Right.
And the young old is between 60 to 75 years. People are young old. They have less of health issues. They can be very active. They can work. They can do other things. But after 80 years, which we call as old, people start becoming unhealthy, develop problems of diabetes or other issues start, and women also start getting arthritis from the age osteoporosis from the age of 65 itself. This sets in, and there's a lot of pain. The common feature is the more pain you have, the more older you have become. So the body pain is what is the singular feature of old age. And of course, a lot of our work is to reduce pain, whether it is through physiotherapy or whether it is through palliative care. Pain is a major area that
pain, whether it is physical, emotional, or psychological.
All kinds of pain. Yeah.
Now, HelpAge was formed in 1978 in India. It's been about 35 odd years in India. What is this journey all about?
HelpAge started out with a very simple mission of starting an old age home in Delhi. So this old age home was set up near Chhatarpur, and that was outskirts of Delhi in those days, and this was set up and to build older people. Then soon it was realized that there are many more older people who require this kind of care. So very few years after that, we got into medical care.
Right.
We started to provide health care to elderly, because in rural areas elderly were not being looked after, and doctors don't go to rural areas. And as a result of it, we started mobile medical care in rural areas. Today we have close to 90 mobile medical units across the country. We have close to 100 doctors.
The Mobile Medical Unit, or MMU program, has been recognized in 2008 as the largest mobile healthcare network for elderly in Asia.
Rural area, you mean actual rural areas or semi-urban?
No, actual rural areas.
Now in rural areas, also do you find that there is a system of the nuclear family where the elderly are not looked after?
No, this must have been true in 1978, but as of now, rural migration has increased over the years, and most rural people are also come to urban areas. Even in parts of North Bihar where we work in rural areas, we find young have migrated. They are either in the cities of Bombay or Delhi or other cities. So in most parts of the country, people have migrated, and elderly are left behind. But particularly severe is problems in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, where youngsters are mostly in the cities. Only the old are left behind, and they survive on what is called a money order economy. So unless transfer of money takes place, they don't survive. And in Punjab again, where we have homes in Patiala, in Gurdaspur, etc., here migration has been more to other countries rather to other parts of India.
Which is also true for Kerala.
It's true for Kerala, it's true for Goa, it's true for many parts of Western India also. Gujarat also has got a lot of migration to the US and to United Kingdom, etc.
So, when you talk about migration abroad, that means economically the parents or the elderly are better off because the money is coming in dollars than compared to people who are going from Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, because they are going as migratory labor within the country.
Yeah. Yes, it is true that they have more money being sent by their children from foreign countries, wherever it is. But take my own home district, Pathanamthitta in Kerala. Almost every home is only filled with older people. There are no youngsters there to look after the old. So what happens they may have money, but they have nobody to take care of them.
Right.
There are no caregivers. There is no, even if they have to go to a hospital, they have to call some driver or somebody to there's nobody to drive their car. They may have a car in their backyard, but they may not be able to drive to the hospital. So there are many issues which money alone can solve.
No, why I ask this is because when there is money, then old age home doesn't have to be a stigma. It can actually be a home away from home where people of the same background, same language, same culture live together and they're looked after. So you find that some of the educated people don't really mind being in an old age home, like ex-servicemen, for example, would prefer that than to stay and be a burden on the family.
This concept of old age homes is still a stigma. Whether it is in Punjab or Kerala, wherever it is, there is a stigma. And very few people, especially in the middle class and in the upper middle class do not want to go into an old age home.
True.
And they also, there is this concept of retirement homes. Even the army has had some retirement homes in Devlali, in Nasik, and in other places. But what is happening is there again, they are only able to accommodate a few of the ex-servicemen or retirement. There is also this concept of retirement homes coming up in Coimbatore, in Pune, in Dehradun, etc., which are primarily for the middle class. Again, the number of takers is very few, and usually it is the, we call the NRI parents who take this up, because actually the cost of the home is paid by their children and they go and stay there, because it becomes very difficult to maintain your house, very difficult to take care of yourself. So these NRI parents are living in these retirement homes. It is yet to take off in this country, and there is still a stigma attached to old age homes.
With HelpAge, are you also kind of educating people that it is okay to come to an old age home, or do you also look at old age as the last resort, the home?
Actually, we look at old age as the last resort.
Right.
We are increasingly going to children, going to school children, and asking them to look after their parents. We also go into classrooms and talk to children about old age. We take them to old age homes and say, if you do not take care of your parents, this will be the situation of your own parents after a few years.
And your own self one day, because we are all aging, we'll all become old one day.
Right, absolutely. And so children see and they sensitize themselves. We organized amongst the youth something called HUG program, which is Help Unite Generations.
Right.
And the whole idea is to give a jappi to your old parents.
Jadoo ki jappi.
Jadoo ki jappi. And हर जगह लोग जाते थे और बुजुर्गों को, they used to hug them and create a sensation. Because what is happening is this feeling of being touched and hugged by another person is something which you cherish in old age.
Yeah.
It may, and I'm sure it's cherished in all ages, but as you're older, you start losing the family touch. You don't get enough of people visiting you. You have less of family contact. So this hugging them is touching them and talking to them. Even our doctors, increasingly, most of them are very popular with the elderly, because what they do is actually they touch them, they feel them, and then they give a certain medicine. And the medicine is only 10% of the problem. 90% is solved by the touch and feel factors. Rest is all little bit of medicine will do the trick. So we encourage this kind of touch and feel factors, so that older people start feeling that they are wanted, they are needed by the younger people. So then they also feel happy. So at best it is only a provision of happiness rather than medical care, because a lot of the hypertension, diabetes, etc., these are non-communicable diseases and non-curable diseases also.
Right.
You can just take a tablet and keep it under control. You can never cure it. So
I think the biggest disease really is loneliness, isn't it?
The biggest disease of our age is loneliness. And also the biggest thing is also selfishness, which has grown amongst the population, that you are not even having time to look after your own parents. And we released a report on elder abuse.
Right.
And this was released nationally. And this report also said that 1 in 3 older people are being abused by their own children. And Hindi serials में आप लोग देखते हैं सास बहू की कहानी and things like that. And Bahu is actually an unlikely victim of the media. And actually in our study we found that son is the biggest abuser. It is not the Bahu. And so in most cases of abuse we found son, and Bahu was only in 20% of the cases Bahu was the abuser.
This in itself also is again a strange tragedy, because throughout their lives most parents hanker for a son, and it is the son who ultimately turns them out of the house. Yes. Isn't it?
It is the son who turns them out of the house, and it is also the son who violates everything. So people should lose this bias for this son, because it is actually, in many cases we have found that it is daughters who take care
really
of their
do take
older
care,
parents. And of course, I have 2 daughters, so I can also hope that one
So
day
you can
they
be
will
rest assured that you will not be
that
turned out.
They will be take care of me. Yeah. So.
But you know, it is also rather tragic that we are talking about the elderly as them, and also out of a sense of pity or sympathy, because देखा जाए, we are the ones who are standing on their shoulders. उन्होंने ये society यहाँ पहुँचाई है जहाँ पर हम आज खड़े हैं.
Elderly are a big source of inspiration, wisdom. They are the ones who have taken care. In fact, you can say they are the ones who have built up this society and this country. But when it comes to taking care of them, we do not give back. That is why I mentioned about our selfishness. We are too much bothered about me, myself, and nothing about the rest of the world. So as a result of it, even your own parents you are not able to take care of. And this has been our biggest mission with children and with the youth and various kinds of things. And to prevent elder abuse, we have been trying quite a few measures. We have a helpline in 22 cities on the number of 1253. So
1253. So anybody, कोई भी बुजुर्ग हो जिसको कोई भी परेशानी हो, वो 1253 डायल करे,
and
तो
they
उसको
will be
हेल्प मिल
connected.
जाएगी.
Yeah. And in places outside these cities, they have to dial 1-800-180-1253. Because on mobile phones outside the circle areas, these don't connect on the 4-digit number. So you have to use.
When people get in touch with HelpAge, what is the kind of service that they can expect, or help they can expect?
They can expect counseling care. They can expect, if in cases of abuse, that we will take the children to court. We will also take up the cases with the police in case there has been more violence. So we collaborate with the law authorities, with the police, so that there is some form of protection for older people.
And what about legal aid, if they need any kind of legal help?
We have a host of lawyers who have been helpful to us, and they take up these cases free of cost. And then Delhi has got a legal aid society, where legal aid society also takes up some of these cases of abuse, and they follow up the case till it is finally settled. And the lockouts have been very slow, and there have been Supreme Court judgments that cases dealing with older people should be expedited, etc. But in spite of all the directives, still it takes a longer time. We are constantly trying to speed up the process, and it is difficult to get in.
हम लोग कभी किसी भी दफ्तर में जाएं तो वहाँ सीनियर सिटीजन्स की लाइन अलग होती है. But besides that, we find that senior citizens are not really given any kind of special privilege. On a governmental level, where law is concerned, are there any provisions made for the elderly?
Senior citizens के लिए क्यों कुछ जगह में अलग अलग होता है. इसके अलावा रेलवे ticketing में भी 50% concession है for the elderly. And there are also other provisions, like there is a pension law. If you are poor and if you are below the poverty line, there is a old age pension scheme by which they get 200 rupees to 300 rupees per month, which of course we have been telling this is inadequate. This doesn't cover a lot of people. This has to be extended. And as you know, in the banks, there's 1% extra interest if you are a senior citizen and you put your money in FDs. So increasingly, we want more pensions for the poor. We want more pensions and also universal health insurance, because there is no health insurance other than a scheme of Government of India called the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana.
There was this scheme that it was mandatory for a doctor to intern in a rural area before he could move forward in his degree.
Actually, there is a scheme. Even I think I heard Prime Minister Modi also saying that doctors should go to rural areas and things like that. But it is very badly implemented. In fact, I do not know how the doctors escape it, but I think they find ways to escape this going to rural areas, and very few go. and work in rural hospitals or in even in district hospitals. They tend to cluster around the major metros, or even
I suppose that is where the money is.
Yeah, that is where the money is. I agree, that's where the money is. But actually we as a country, we spend a lot on medical education. Every medical doctor has a subsidy. Every engineer who goes through a IIT has a huge subsidy from Government of India. But they should at least give back that amount
back to society.
And
considering that education is subsidized, whatever money they pay is given to them by their parents.
Yes, they should give back before they can. I don't mind they go abroad or they go to other countries and make a huge lot of money, but at least they should give back to the society.
We need to talk a little bit more about this, but before that, let's take a short break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are in conversation with Mathew Cherian, the CEO of HelpAge India. Mathew, before going into the break, we were talking about the fact that there should be directives to get people, especially the youth, to give back to society and especially to the elderly.
Currently, this scheme is only there in doctors, but engineers don't have any kind of directive. There are also other professions, like we use a lot of physiotherapists.
Right.
And these physiotherapists, because as you know, women tend to develop pain because of arthritis and osteoporosis. And physiotherapy is one easy way of reducing pain. And even to get physiotherapists to go to rural areas has become a big problem. And they also tend to stick to the cities.
But in cities too, the elderly face a lot of problems, don't they?
In cities also they face, but the real challenge is to deliver this healthcare in rural areas.
Okay.
In cities, it is less of a problem to deliver. There is already facilities available.
Okay.
There could be issues that people can't afford to pay. There might be a physiotherapy clinic in your local area, but you can't pay the fees, or you don't have enough pension to cover that thing. There are issues around money. But at the same time, in rural areas, there is complete lack of it.
There is no facility
at all.
And of course, there is no money.
Yeah. And there is a government scheme called the National Program for Healthcare of the Elderly by the Ministry of Health. And this was to go to 100 districts in the country, the 100 poorest districts in the country. But unfortunately, even today, I don't think they've made headway more than 15 districts they might have covered in the last 3 years.
You know, people say that you're as young as you feel. So somewhere it is important to hold on to that inner child, to keep that curiosity alive. Is HelpAge doing anything of that sort as well, to keep people engaged, socially engaged and engaged in different hobbies, for example?
We have a principle which we call as active aging.
Right.
And active aging is a principle by which the more you're socially connected, you become more active. And the reality is, in many colonies and many cities, we have formed senior citizen associations.
Right.
And these senior citizen associations are basically groups of seniors who meet at a particular location. And sometimes they may play some games like carom or chess, or just watch television or something, or talk to each other.
Or even walking groups they formed at various parks.
Laughter groups, various kinds of groups they do. So today I think across the country there are 37,000 senior citizen associations across the country.
And is HelpAge involved with that?
HelpAge is involved with each and every senior citizen association across the country. And there is also, we tend to meet, like recently on 1st October, we met at Rajpath where there was a huge walk for all of them.
Yes,
so there were about 5,000 senior citizens in it. And the Minister for Social Justice also came to flag off the walkathon. So these are interactions which senior citizens love and keeps them active. Besides this also, we encourage older people to take up a hobby.
Right.
Or the hobby could be anything from social work to photography or painting or some other activity which you did not do in your earlier period of life. If you take up some activity like that, which can be in your own neighborhood, it need not be very far away, then you will remain healthy and young. Because the more you can keep exercising your other parts of the brain,
they say that if you exercise your brain with either mathematical or word problems or puzzles, then you can keep Alzheimer's and dementia off for a longer time.
Dementia is a problem by which if you continue to exercise only one part of your brain, you're likely to get dementia.
So you need to exercise different parts.
Other parts of the brain. So mathematical puzzle, Sudoku, and others are very beneficial. Also, they have found that gardening is a good area to take up. And anything which involves your fingers is a good area, because I believe all the nerve endings are in your fingers. So you will start getting more electrical impulses on your brain. So in general, we have found the people who have been more socially connected have lived longer and lived healthier. And the ones who stayed alone and did not keep much touch got depressed and finally died much earlier. So dementia is also increasingly becoming a problem. And of course, the last stage of dementia is called Alzheimer's, which is a particularly painful period, because you don't recognize your own.
It is not so painful for the patient, but it is very painful for the relatives.
Yes,
and
it is
caretakers.
very painful for the relatives, because the parent doesn't recognize them. They also please ask, who are you? Why have you come here? All sorts of issues. And there are aggressive forms of Alzheimer where people get violent also. And so it is, to see your own parent become like a Alzheimer patient is very difficult, because there's a complete loss of personality. There's a complete change. And I have seen many children going through traumatic times to see their parents in this shape. But Alzheimer still doesn't have a complete cure. So it is something we have to find a cure. But at the same time, if you can be socially connected, you have less chances of getting dementia.
I've read something you've written somewhere that laughter probably is the best medicine.
Yes. And actually a fair amount of laughter is the best remedy, because if you go seriously in life, it's going to become a problem. So you need to laugh, you need to smile, you need to enjoy a company of people who can also laugh with you. So I have found that there's more laughter clubs coming up even in Delhi, in other parts of the country, because the moment you laugh, half your worries and stresses go out of the window.
And that becomes a wonderful continuum, because आप जितना हंसेंगे, लोग उतना आपसे बात करना चाहेंगे.
I've also noticed older people who always, when you meet them, tell the sad story over and over again. And sometimes what happens to younger people is they stop visiting, because they say,
this story तो सुनी हुई है.
सुनी हुई story है, हर वक्त यही बोलती है. So they stop. So it's always better to avoid saying such depressing stories and to say something more humorous and live a life of happiness.
So do you think somewhere when it comes to the elderly, they need to somewhere remap their own brains and kind of, refigure out how they are going to behave socially?
There is something called preparation for old age, and in India what happens is most people don't prepare for old age. What happens is retirement happens suddenly to them, and the next day they find that they have retired, and even their own children and their spouses don't appreciate them being at home all the time. So as a result of it, they start worrying, and then they start getting
I suppose what happens is retirement तो आ जाती है, old age नहीं आती है.
Old age नहीं आती है. And they start aging. Because of this, they start aging rapidly. So to prevent it is, I feel the best thing is you cannot change your social construct very quickly. But if you can determine yourself that you will take up an alternate hobby, say if it is photography, then you will meet other photographers. You will buy for force of your hobby itself. Even if you have gardening as a hobby, you will meet other people who are interested in gardening. You will start getting socially connected. So my advice is to take up something else. And
so like people plan for the future in terms of when I retire, meri ye pension hogi, mera ye sab hoga. Similarly, one should plan for old age as well, you know, take up hobbies or plan that these are the hobbies.
Don't take up something which somebody is forcing you to take. Take up something which you really wanted to do. Maybe you wanted to be a singer, or maybe you wanted to learn a particular instrument, or why don't you take up that and start working on it?
Are these hobbies also being offered by HelpAge? Are you helping people to understand or orienting them in any which way?
Actually, we have not helped them take up hobbies, but we have encouraged older photographers who have taken up as a hobby. We have a special exhibition of the art, or if somebody has taken up painting, we have had Shamak Davar come and teach dancing to some older people.
Yes.
And so we have done similar kind of events. But what holds them together is these associations which we form, the senior citizen associations, because that is a point of contact which is available in your neighborhood. And if you stay connected to that, then HelpAge also can connect, because we can't go house to house to do something. We can go to this group in whichever part of India and
so
talk to
if
them.
somebody, a few people get together and form a group, they can approach you.
They can approach
And
us.
how do you help them then?
We help them in many ways. We help them sometimes financially. We sometimes help them by giving them literature on active aging. And some of our staff go and give them talks. And we invite them for occasions like a walkathon, or when we are having a talk by somebody important, or we are having a photography exhibition. We invite them to come and see it.
And you had your senior citizens also contributing to the Uttarakhand tragedy.
Yes, we have had. And actually in every tragedy, senior citizens have been contributing. We just asked them that we are doing work in Uttarakhand, or recently for Jammu and Kashmir also they donated. So people are quite generous. And these associations form the hubs, which we can contact them and talk to them, etc. In some places we are also encouraging them. We have given them some computers so that they can get on to Facebook, or they can get on to whatever.
Any of the social
networks, open an email ID and maybe do whatever you want, you know.
Now when you have a society of the elderly, then again you're segregating them together. Do you think it makes sense to have a society or a group which has mixed, a mixed age group, where there are the young, the middle-aged and the elderly, so that it becomes a kind of a mixed group so that they can interact with each other?
Yeah, actually there are a lot of people who have told me this, that you should create groups of both children and elderly. But somehow I have found in practical experience it really doesn't work very well. And because youngsters come for a little while and then they drop off, because there is no age connected. We find it is better that we have, like I mentioned about a hug program or something, where we call younger people and say, now these are the older people, why don't you come and give a talk or perform something to that, or do an intergenerational play where you have elders also acting, you have young people also acting, so you can create a play like that. So then they interact. These are purposeful engagements. So if you have it generically come every week to this association, they don't come.
You've been now with HelpAge for quite a while, and what do you think is the one thing that touches your heart and you say, okay, ye maine kiya or ye hua, I feel good about it?
The best thing I think I have done is what I feel in terminal care of elderly, because what I have found is over a period of time we thought we were working very well, we were providing medical care, etc. But when we came across not just one or two, but thousands of elderly who are suffering from terminal illness and nobody to take care of them. And to provide that dignity in death was the biggest joy and satisfaction for me. Because that is an area which I think India will need in the future also, because with the demographics and the migration which I talked about, less and less children will be there. How do you ensure that elderly in their last few days are really taken care of? That is going to be the challenge. And this is where I feel we have done something towards palliative care, reducing pain, and also providing dignity to the elderly.
And which is the area which you think is still very challenging and a lot needs to be done?
Biggest challenge is today is the area of pension.
Okay.
And we don't have a universal pension in this country. And what has happened is, if you work for 30 years, you, in all likelihood, you will live another 30 years after retirement. And very few people have enough money for that. And Western countries have a very good social security system. We do not have a social security system. We have a little bit of pension for government officers and army officers, but we don't have for the bulk of the people. And in rural areas, we find even the poor pension coming under the National Old Age Pension Scheme is very, very minuscule. So there are people living in abject poverty in old age. The big challenge will be, how do we give a universal pension to all our countrymen and women, so that in old age they have some financial means to live their life. And this is going to become more and more important, because the traditional support where children were your social security, that has vanished.
मजबूरी का सिर्फ एक नाम है, दूसरा बुढ़ापा है, और तीसरे आप हैं जो कुछ नहीं करते.
We have been asking government to give a universal pension to all people who are not taxpayers.
Right.
There are rich old also, they don't need a pension, but those who don't have means, the state should be providing this pension.
Mathew, you yourself were pretty young. You would have you'd studied engineering in BITS.
Yeah.
And what drew you to social welfare, for taking care of the elderly? And before that also, you've done a lot of social work.
Till I passed out from engineering, I had not seen any rural areas or been sensitized to the problems of India. So I took up a job with oil exploration, and so when I was drilling in Bombay High, I came across abject poverty in the city of Mumbai.
Yes.
And actually wherever I went in Mumbai, I used to see a lot of poor. I found street children on the road. I found hungry kids, all sorts of problems across the city. And then it set me thinking that what am I doing with my own life, making a little money in oil exploration and not looking at this. Then I got involved with a guy called Sanjoy Ghosh, a person who is no more, and we started then going to poor slums and to rural areas just outside.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us.
Okay.
And seeing what we can do. And so then it set me realizing that this is more exciting and interesting than all my oil exploration and my engineering work. So I gave up that job and went into that. Both of us went into looking at rural development.
Every person in our society needs to be sensitized towards society, towards the elderly and the underprivileged. I think that's a good note to end the program on. Thank you very much for being on our program.
Thank you very much.